Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome to the intersection of faith and the culture. This is WallBuilders Live, where we talk about today's hottest topics. Always looking at those topics from a biblical, historical, and constitutional perspective. I guarantee you, if you take those three perspectives on any issue you're dealing with, whether it's family-related or cultural, what's happening in your neighborhood, with your state, with your nation, with business, you name it. If you'll look at it from all three perspectives, you're going to find the right answer. And then having the courage to implement that answer, well, that's a whole nother topic. But here at WallBuilders Live, we love addressing all of these things and then giving you the encouragement you need and the equipping that you need to be the difference maker in your community. You can be the catalyst to be a restoration of biblical principles, of biblical values, of constitutional principles. You can be the catalyst for restoring that in your community, your state, and in our nation. So thanks for tuning in to WallBuilders Live. My name is Rick Green. I'm a former Texas legislator and America's Constitution coach, and I have the privilege and honor of being here with David Barton, America's premier historian and our founder here at WallBuilders, and Tim Barton, national speaker and pastor and president of WallBuilders. Now, the recording that we're going to play for you today is actually from a conference we all attended just a few weeks ago for legislators. It's called the ProFamily Legislators Conference. We do it once a year. And we put on this conference for the purpose of bringing in these state reps and state senators from all over the nation, giving them a chance to hear from great speakers like the one you're going to hear from today, but also just to interact, to have that iron sharpening iron, that opportunity to sharpen each other's countenance, to find out that they're not alone, that there are other legislators that come from that biblical, historical, and constitutional perspective, and then to exchange ideas on things that they've had success on in their state, so that others can do the same. It's a really great opportunity. ProFamily Legislators Conference is the name of it. And I tell you, we would love to have all of you attend if possible, but that's not possible. So what we do is when we hear these great speakers, we try to bring as many of their presentations to you here on WallBuilders Live as we possibly can. So we played a few of them over the holidays. We've got another one we're going to play this week. It's Glenn Beck, and he was on actually WallBuilders Live last week to talk about the Great Reset. And we thought, well, let's go ahead and share Glenn's entire presentation from the Legislators Conference. A lot of great information in there. So we're going to jump right into that. I'm going to take a quick break here, and then when we come back from the break, we will be joining Glenn Beck as he presents at the ProFamily Legislators Conference. Stay with us. You're listening to WallBuilders Live.
This is Tim Barton from WallBuilders with another moment from American history. America is a special and unique nation. The average length for a constitution in other countries is only 17 years, but we've had ours for over 2 centuries, and our 4% of the world's population produces 24% of the world's gross domestic product, and every year we produce more inventions and technology than the other 96% of the world combined. In 1831, Alexis de Tocqueville of France came to America, traveled the country, and in his famous book, Democracy in America, reported, "The position of the Americans is therefore quite exceptional, and it may be believed that no democratic people will ever be placed in a similar one." This is the origin of the phrase American exceptionalism, and affirms that America is unique because of the distinctive ideas on which we have been based, including inalienable rights, individualism, limited government, and the importance of religion and morality. For more information about American exceptionalism, go to wallbuilders.com.
We're back here on WallBuilders Live. Thanks for staying with us today. Glenn Beck is our special guest today. It's actually a presentation that he gave at the ProFamily Legislators Conference. Let's jump in. Here's Glenn Beck at the ProFamily Legislators Conference.
I think God raised all of us up for this time. We are all here for a reason. We all have our own role to play. And it's game time, big time. I remember when I was at Fox and being pummeled because it was racist to call someone a Marxist back in the old days. And everybody thought it was crazy. And I held out hope until the last couple of years that maybe I was. And it doesn't, well, I might be still crazy, but I wasn't wrong, at least on the Marxist thing. We're entering new territory that we have never seen ever before. And it is going to require us to know who we are, to know what we believe, to know why we believe it, to know our founders and our founding documents. David and I have been partnered on our history for a while. David has spent his whole career collecting all of the happy things about American history. I've kind of concentrated on the dark side. And the reason why is you can tell people about the good stuff, but unless you can tell them also about the really nasty stuff, I can sit Van Jones down and I'd curl his, well, he doesn't have hair, but I'd curl his hair on the bad stuff that this country has done. But I could then follow it up with all of the great things that we've done. That is what we have to do. We have to teach the truth. I'm a huge fan of Winston Churchill. I've read so much on Winston Churchill. I just love the guy. But all of my studies at the beginning were about him from the Western point of view. You start to look into Winston Churchill on the other side of the planet, and you look how the Indians and what he said about the Indians in India and what he did, the guy is like, you're like, that's not the same guy. It's not the same guy. How is this guy not see oppression in India, and yet he is the leader of the free world in our hemisphere? How is that possible? It's easy. He's human. He's just like all of us. He's just like every country. He's like our country. We are neither good nor bad. We're on the path to be a more perfect nation. Not a perfect one, a more perfect nation. You never ever, except for Jesus, I don't think anyone was dying going, yep, did the best I could, did it, it's finished, it's perfect. Except for Jesus. All of us are going, I wish I would have done this, I should have done this, honey, I should have said this to you. That's the way it is. We all make mistakes. It's the trajectory. And our trajectory has most times been going up. A few times we have stumbled. I hate Andrew Jackson. I hate that guy. I hate Woodrow Wilson. Hate that guy. I won't talk about any future or past presidents in the last few years. But there are times that we have lost our way because we're people. We're people. So what do we have to do? We just have to know the truth and all of it. And none of us have truly been taught the truth. Classes are not the textbooks, that's not the truth. David has been collecting, has now more than anyone but the Library of Congress and the National Archives in founding documents. Our charity Mercury One just secured the largest collection of pilgrim papers and early American founding documents from 1550 to 1700, I think. We can dismantle the 1619 Project while asleep. And let me just show you a couple of things. There is nothing, and I learned this from David. When I met David 15 years ago, he would just amaze me. He'd show up at my studio and he'd be like, oh, I think I have FDR's original speech in my pocket. And it's hard to argue when somebody has the document. You know, you're like, he never said that. Here he is in his own handwriting. So that's the power of these things. This is an 1830 engraving of the first draft of the Declaration of Independence. This is worth its weight in gold for what you're going to learn. This is incredible because it immediately dismantles almost everything they say about America and our founders. They're racist. They're all slave owners. This whole thing was built against blacks. No. Thomas Jefferson, how can a man possibly say all men are created equal? How could he possibly say that when he had slaves? Now, we could talk to you about all kinds of things. We could talk to you about the laws they tried to change in Virginia, couldn't. We could talk about all kinds of things that always sound like an excuse. Or we could talk about something in his own handwriting. These are the first 2 pages of the first draft of the Declaration of Independence. What's fantastic about this, you'll see here, it talks about the Declaration. The United States of America are the only words that are fully capitalized in the second draft of the Declaration. This is in his own handwriting. There are 2 other words that are printed out and capitalized in this, and I'll get to them in a second. It's amazing as you look at it, because if anybody's done a Word document, you send it around and you make changes and you have a team that are making changes, you know that it takes your changes, puts your name off to the side, the time and the date when you changed it and what you changed. Here and all through it on the margins, it's the same thing, except it's in Benjamin Franklin and John Adams' handwriting. And it's J. Adams, the date and what he changed on the side. B. Franklin. It's amazing. The 3 of them worked on this, but this is mainly the product of Thomas Jefferson. And it is beautiful. It is beautiful. It is the most spectacular letter ever written. I truly believe that. It is the only thing I've read that is more beautiful, honestly, is Bonhoeffer's letter to his sister, who he was supposed to marry, but he was in jail with the Nazis. And if you've ever read his beautiful sermon on the meaning of marriage, it's unbelievable. This is in that category and so divinely inspired. But what's amazing about this draft, the Declaration of Independence is first a breakup letter. It's a Dear George letter. and it basically says, Dear George, it is you, it's not me. It is you. And it's the power of it is, it doesn't go into, and you don't pick up your dirty underwear, you're never cleaning the dishes. It's none of that. Well, it is, but after the first part says, you don't know who we are. You don't know who we are. We've been trying to tell you, but you and me, we're different. Because we hold a few truths that we think are self-evident. It's an amazing thing. And in one paragraph, it lays out who we are, what we believe, and why government even exists. Wow. And then it says, now let's talk about how much you stink. And that's the usurpations part of the Declaration of Independence. All of the things that the king has done that have really said, we need a divorce. There are several of them. If you've ever read them, they're fun, and it's actually kind of a fun game now to see how many our kings in Washington are violating of those same rights. But if you look all the way down, it gets to page 3. Most of these usurpations are 1 to 2 lines long. Then you get to the very last one in Thomas Jefferson's handwriting, and it's about a paragraph. And so it says, the king has waged a cruel war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life and liberty in the persons of a distant people who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery into another hemisphere, to incur miserable death in their transportation. This is an infidel power. It is the warfare of pirates. It is the warfare spelled out, capitalized, and underlined of the Christian king of Great Britain. He's mocking him. How dare you? You are violating the most sacred of all rights. And you dare call yourself a Christian.
All right, friends, we're going to interrupt Glenn for just a second. Got to take a quick break. Stay with us. You're listening to WallBuilders Live.
Hi friends, this is Tim Barton of WallBuilders. This is a time when most Americans don't know much about American history or even heroes of the faith, and I know oftentimes for parents, we're trying to find good content for our kids to read, and if you remember back to the Bible, to the book of Hebrews, it has the Faith Hall of Fame where they outlined the leaders of faith that had gone before them. Well, this is something that as Americans, we really want to go back and outline some of these heroes, not just of American history, but heroes of Christianity and our faith as well. I want to let you know about some biographical sketches we have available on our website. One is called the Courageous Leaders Collection. And this collection includes people like Abigail Adams, Abraham Lincoln, Francis Scott Key, George Washington Carver, Susanna Wesley, even the Wright brothers. And there's a second collection called Heroes of History. In this collection, you'll read about people like Benjamin Franklin or Christopher Columbus, Daniel Boone, George Washington, Harriet Tubman. Friends, the list goes on and on. This is a great collection for your young person to have and read, and it's a providential view of American and Christian history. This is available at wallbuilders.com. That's www.wallbuilders.com.
We're back here on WallBuilders Live. Thanks for staying with us. We've been enjoying a presentation from Glenn Beck at the ProFamily Legislators Conference, so let's jump right back in. Here's Glenn Beck.
This is the warfare of the Christian king of Great Britain, determined, listen to this, to keep an open market where, all caps, men should be bought and sold. How can Thomas Jefferson write that all men are created equal and not see his own hypocrisy? He did. He took a bold stand when everybody else on the king's side or on the side of slavery said, that's not a man, that's a slave. He said and capitalized, bolded, and underlined, men. That is an act of courage. That is an act of truth. That is the act of our true founders. He goes on. He says not only is he keeping a slave market for men to be bought and sold, he has prostituted his negative for suppressing every legislative attempt to prohibit or restrain this, scratched out, B. Franklin, to restrain, I can't read his writing, that this assemblage of horrors might want no fact of distinguished dye. He is now exciting those very people to rise in arm amongst us and to purchase their liberty, which he has deprived them of by murdering the people upon whom he has also offended. Thus, paying off former crimes committed against the liberties of one people with crimes that he urges to commit against the lives of another. Thomas Jefferson was really super clear. Now, why didn't that make it into the final draft? Because the first thing they did in the legislative session was decide, does this need to be unanimous or not? You know, in the final draft, it says the unanimous Declaration of Independence. Why? Why did John Hancock stand up and say, all right, before we even write it down, do we just have to agree 80%, 90%, or does it have to be unanimous? Every hand went up. It has to be unanimous. Why? Why? Because he knew the king would worm his way in and rot the Union. Everybody had to be on the same page, because if they weren't marching exactly to the same drummer, the king would split them apart. And once you're split apart, you're done. So every hand went up, unanimous. So this racist country, these horrible founders, When they heard that, out of the 13 colonies, how many raised their hand to say what he wrote was true? How many out of the 13 colonies? Remember, you're talking about racist America and racist founders. And you've got Virginia, you've got Georgia, you got the whole South. Two said no. 11 said we stand with that. 11 of our colonies. It was 2 that said no. By the way, one of them was not Virginia. Virginia said, we want that in there. That's where George Washington was from, a racist, a slave owner, a horrible human being. We should tear his statue down. Once you tell the truth about America, everything changes. They have spent 100 years destroying the truth. They have spent 100 years. I read stuff now in history books, it's garbage. And I know because we have the documents. How many have heard that Thomas Paine is our first atheist? You heard that? Thomas Paine, our first atheist. Oh, he didn't believe in God, you know. Well, none of them did, actually. But Thomas Paine, he was a full-fledged atheist. It's weird because we found a document we just secured in Thomas Paine's own handwriting. It's about 10 pages long. He had just gotten out of the Bastille. Everyone he had written, what is it? It's Rights of Man, which is the one where everybody says, oh my gosh, he's such an atheist, he doesn't believe in God. That starts to spread all over America, and he is run through the mud. Well, this letter that you'll never read about, I wonder why, is written to Benjamin Franklin from Paine, who's in France. And it says, what are you guys doing to me? What are you doing to me? I was there. I saw the miracles. I get it. I believe in God. I just don't believe in organized religion. And I'm over here in France. I thought they got it, but they don't. It's not the American Revolution. The guillotine thing was pulled out, and I got it pretty quickly.
Stay with us, folks. We're going to take a very quick break. You've been listening to Glenn Beck speaking at the ProFamily Legislators Conference. It's going to take us a few days to share this entire presentation. It will all be available at our website, WallBuildersLive.com. Stay with us. We'll be right back on WallBuilders Live. Have you ever wanted to learn more about the United States Constitution, but just felt like, man, the classes are boring, or it's just that old language from 200 years ago, or I don't know where to start? People want to know, but it gets frustrating because you don't know where to look for truth about the Constitution either. Well, we've got a special program for you available now called Constitution Alive with David Barton and Rick Green, and it's actually a teaching done on the Constitution at Independence Hall in the very room where the Constitution was framed. We take you both to Philadelphia, the cradle of liberty in Independence Hall, and to the WallBuilders Library, where David Barton brings the history to life to teach the original intent of our founding fathers. We call it the Quick Start Guide to the Constitution because in just a few hours through these videos, you will learn the Citizen's Guide to America's Constitution. You'll learn what you need to do to help save our constitutional republic. It's fun, it's entertaining, and it's going to inspire you to do your part to preserve freedom for future generations. It's called Constitution Alive with David Barton and Rick Green. You can find out more information on our website now at WallBuilders.com. Welcome back to WallBuilders Live. You've been listening to Glenn Beck speak at the ProFamily Legislators Conference. We're going to jump right back in with Glenn Beck.
The difference is they equate God with the church, which is equated to the government. So they don't believe any of this because it was all tied to the government. I'm trying to separate God from the government and let the church go with the government so we preserve God. Why isn't that in our history books? I mean, it's pretty hard to argue with. It's his own handwriting. It's signed by him. Why isn't that in our history books? The answer is easy. Because you can't destroy America if people know the truth. It's your job to know the truth. David said, thanked me a million times as I was walking out. Thank you for being here. Are you kidding me? This is an honor to be in a room full of people who are wide awake and are ready to stand for their country. It's an honor. Now, let me tell you something. Are there any Christians in this room? I know there's a bunch of racists. You're probably Christians too. And there's no good that has ever come from Christians. Except for this.
All right, friends, we are out of time for today. We did not get the entire presentation from Glenn Beck at the ProFamily Legislators Conference, so tomorrow and the next day we'll be giving you the rest of the presentation. You can go to WallBuildersLive.com and get all three programs later this week. And by the way, when you visit that website, please consider making a donation. Your donations as a listener, that support is what makes the program possible. As you know, we need more truth in the culture, and so the louder our voice here at WallBuilders Live can be, the more people we can reach, the better chance we have of saving this constitutional republic, saving our religious liberty, all the things you love about being an American. That's what we're fighting for, and we need your help. Please come alongside us. Go to WallBuildersLive.com today and make that contribution, and then be sure and tune in tomorrow. Thanks so much for listening. You've been listening to WallBuilders Live.
We stand undivided.